Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News on the South Florida Conservative News Service. It's Monday, June 2nd. And if you've been in a hole over the weekend, you did not realize that the Ukrainians had launched a highly successful, as they say, Pearl Harbor style attack on Russia. And if the numbers are correct, have decimated almost the entirety of Russian tactical bombing for the future, for the long future. 40 aircraft were supposedly hit, and that includes Tu-95 and Tu-160 bombers. There's videotape of a lot of it, and it's some bad news. So let's just go straight through this. Considering they met today or yesterday, it's the time schedule, in Istanbul to talk peace, and they did show up and talk peace, kind of, but probably just to gloat over the weekend's bombings. So let's start with the military implications, okay? The destruction of these Russian Tu-95 and Tu-160 bombers, if confirmed at being the number 40, which is what seems to be the number, means that Moscow has lost a huge chunk of its long-range missile platform. These bombers were responsible for launching standoff cruise missiles into the Ukraine from deep inside Russia. That's how they do their tactical stuff. Put the plane up, shoot the cruise missile. That way it can't be shot down, plane can't be shot down, and it's off to the races. But that's not all, because Ukrainian drones also reportedly struck a series of Russian submarine pens, which we have to verify, but it's a pretty unimpeachable source. We're just not going to mention it. Potentially targeting nuclear-capable submarines. For context, that's equivalent to somebody parking a UAV next to our Ohio-class SSBN in Kings Bay or Bangor. It's bold, it's brazen, and it's extremely escalatory. What Ukraine pulled off wasn't just a military strike. It's a message, obviously, that we can hit your most sacred assets anytime, anywhere. And we can do it efficiently and for pennies on the dollar also. So why did they do this before the peace talks? Two words: regime survival. Both Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin are functionally dictators at this point, okay? Zelensky has suspended elections and Putin has crushed internal dissent. Both of them have survived assassination attempts in the recent months and year. Both know that being removed from office, either by ballot or by bullet, probably is a death sentence. So the only thing that they can do is to escalate. Zelensky is being pressured by the EU interventionists and Washington hawks, both neoconservative and socialist. They don't want peace. They want Russia broken and NATO entrenched. On the other side, Putin's inner circle, you got the FSB hardliners, you got the Chechen warlords, you got military oligarchs are demanding vengeance. Neither man can afford to look weak, which means diplomacy dies and war deepens. And the reason we know that it's going to be fairly a hands-offy situation, even though we're going to talk about Trump a little bit later, is the fact that while this is going on, President Trump is trying to get his big, beautiful bill passed in the Senate, which is Mitch McConnell and various other hardcore neocon war hawks. So him coming out there and beating the drums for peace is not what they want to hear, and they will use the budget as collateral to extort things out of President Trump. No doubt in anybody's mind about that, okay? So let's talk about the puppeteers here, since we already started. Behind Zelensky, you've got the U.S. deep state, you have EU technocrats, and defense contractors are salivating over new security pacts. Behind Putin, you've got Chinese energy buyers, you've got domestic warlords, and a failing economy leading on nationalism for survival. If you see maritime news, they just mentioned that tankers are flooding into the area to try to get oil from Russia right now, okay, because they know their prices are so much lower. So everybody is making money on Russia hemorrhaging money from the issues of not being able to sell on the straight market. So even the peace talks themselves were not initiated by Ukraine or Russia, but by, President Trump's aligned diplomats trying to undercut the war machine. That now is in ruins. Okay. It is. This brings us to the most dangerous domino of this whole situation. If you're Russia and your bombers are gone and your submarines are threatened and your enemies are emboldened, what option do you have left? Anyone? Bueller? Tactical nuclear weapons. Everybody's been saying it. It wasn't even really on the table, but now it may be what's for breakfast. This is the part of Russia's military doctrine where they say if the state is existentially threatened, which it has been, a limited nuclear strike can restore deterrence and halt escalation. And that's not just theoretical. If these reports are true, probably are, Russia's second strike credibility is shaken because they also, instead of just launching the regular cruise missile, they were nuclear tips. And the same with the submarines. They're not, if it was a capital ship, most assuredly there was a problem. But then in the Kremlin, that means that nukes aren't off the table. They are on the desk ready to get signed. So what would NATO do? Would NATO respond? Probably not militarily, but economically and diplomatically, absolutely. More sanctions, more arms shipments, possibly even direct targeting data provided to Ukraine, all of which leads to further escalation. My opinion, even the Ukrainians are supposed to be masters of the drone strike. I would say the German intelligence had something to do with this last little Pearl Harbor trip. Not that they specifically built the things, but the level of surveillance that had to be done out there could all have been from NATO information. You have to realize that some of this stuff that the Ukrainians are working from, they could not actually have gotten on their own within a certain amount of time. During this bombing, at the end of it, Ukraine said, all of our people are already out of the country, so anybody you arrest is on you. Now, why would you say that? Right? Because were they ever there? Except for to plant these trucks full of drones? And who knows who even did that, right? Organized crime is still organized crime in these areas. If you ask somebody to park a truck somewhere, they can park a truck somewhere. It's not a big deal. The German intelligence forces, on the other hand, or the French, either way, because France is on my shit list lately, are out there to be spoilers to stop peace from coming into Europe. They're doing this, I guess, partly to distract from the fact that their countries are being taken over by Islamo-fascists, and secondly, to push back against Trump, calling them out on that fact, and thirdly, because they feel they should have their snout in the trough and make some money on this. Joke's going to be on them because if we shut the thing down cold turkey, they'll have to pay for this whole party themselves, and things will get dire very quickly. All right, so we're going to say who benefits from this because it's not just going to be the Ukrainians and Russians in this fight. I would say here's a couple for you to look at. China. Russia becomes more dependent on Beijing, giving the Chinese leverage over energy, weapons development, and Central Asian influence. The Russians have already given them certain mineral rights in Siberia for them to go and play games in. Okay. The Chinese are thinking about building a railroad if it hasn't already gone on. I haven't followed the Chinese side as I should because there's other things going on. Domestic terror and war in the United States trumps everything else as far as I'm concerned. The U.S. defense contractors, of course, my old friends, right? They just got another decade of guaranteed funding in NATO expansion. You'll see a number of these companies have already made like BAE, Rheinmetall, Leonardo, companies like that that are theoretically European but have a very large American component because they don't have the facilities, nor can they build the facilities, whereas we have excess manufacturing surplus space when it comes to stuff like that. Okay. Deep state actors in the US and EU. The escalation keeps Trump from securing a foreign policy win, just as he's ramping up pretty much his campaign to get the rest of the United States together, and also anything he would do to help other senators and congressmen get reelected or elected in the midterm. Nobody wants a loser to come out there and talk for you. Okay. And oddly, if Trump stays the only serious voice calling for real peace, which he is, this could backfire on his enemies and help him with the American voters. All right. How many people are sick of us paying for foreign wars? How many people didn't want to hear Zelensky say maybe the United States should put its troops in a barrier between the Ukrainians and the Russians? So I guess everybody could shoot at us then, right? War weariness, deeply skeptical of the military industrial complex, and having very limited faith in the Congress and the Senate. Because regardless of all the stuff that we talk about and we bitch and moan, the Trump organization, the Trump message is the only message that is out there for the American people. The other stuff is to descend into socialist garbage and lose your country to foreigners who have no care at all about your lifestyle, as you can look into Ireland and England and France and Germany and all the rest of them, right? They do not care what you had going on. They are not going to leave you have NFL red zone. You are going to be praying 5 times a day, and your ugly ass wife is going to have to wear a cover to make her more palatable to the rest of us. All right. So expect a retaliatory Russian strike. Expect failed diplomacy because we're already seeing it. And if the situation continues to spiral, expect nuclear posturing that you haven't seen since the Cold War. This isn't just a regional war anymore. The EU wanted this war. The war is now outside of the boundaries, okay? This is a conflict that's spinning dangerously into the realm of global instability. If even President Erdogan of Turkey is telling the United States to watch what's going on, there's a problem because Erdogan's a survivor. He does not want to have the northern part of his kingdom scorched beyond belief. Okay, so that's where we are on all this. We'll keep our eyes out. You keep your eyes out. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. The United States does not need to be involved in a war in the Ukraine. And I will tell you that everything that we have said here can be proven, and it is. It has nothing to do with anything other than straight up facts. All right. And the straight up facts are I don't want any of my friends to have to go get killed in the Ukraine. I don't want any more of my money going into the Ukraine. This could have been solved, like Trump says. When he says now to you, I could have solved this in the last presidency, he was right because he had everybody back on their heels. They've had that chance to retrench. They've had that chance to double down. Trump is now on the outside of this entire thing. He's trying to make it work. All right. Nobody else is, but he is. So people say, well, he's a sucker. Well, I would much rather have my president trying to stop a nuclear war, limited though it may be, than to be putting more and more money into it to make it a reality. If you have a different opinion, that's your life. Do what you want to do. Like, subscribe, whatever. And we are at a massive four people subscribing over at YouTube. So we are wearing away at C.N.N. And that's about all. Have a good week. Talk to you later on.